I'm just going to set this guy in here nice and easy. If you do not have a decent magnetic screwdriver, please do yourself a favor and go get one. Here we go. Quick video to disassembling and breaking this down ready for paint. First step, we're just going to open one end. I'm going to carefully bend this back because we don't want to damage the box. It's extremely important we do not damage the box. Set the box aside. Every box is going to come with stickers and a booklet and card. That's going to stay with the box. Each box is going to have staples. So we're going to take the staples out and probably going to use a little flathead screwdriver, or if I can find a staple remover, that'll make it easier for us. But ultimately, you just need to pop the 4 staples out. This part is a pain in the butt, and it's a little tedious, which is why I'm hoping a staple remover will make this easier. Take your lid, set it out of the way. The only things that we need to worry about, I'm going to take all these parts out. And this part here has tape on it. Just leave the tape in place and pull it out. Everything else is going to stay in the box just like it is. We're going to put all of this right back in the box. Just like that. Don't bother closing it up. We're going to set it out of the side. Now this is what we got to worry about. Nothing to do here. Nothing to do here. 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 These are the parts we have to take apart. Pretty straightforward. The mini screwdrivers, which I'll have set up for you, is what we're going to use to disassemble. This piece is going to come apart. This is the stock. It's going to get its own bag. The parts that we're taking apart here. Okay, those two come out. It's important that we make sure we put a good solid pressure on these screws so that we're not stripping them out, okay? That's important. All right, all the screws are out. This part goes in your pile. This part, just like it is, goes in your pile. This part, just like it is, goes in the pile. These are one baggie so that I don't mix the screws up. So these screws and the little ring all go in a baggie. The ring will always tell me what goes in there. We have a magazine. It's very easy. It only comes out one way. Just pull the back off. The spring and the follower is going to come out like that. Both of these go in your pile. We'll bag those in a minute. This part gets a little bit more complicated, but it's not hard. One screw here. I'm going to take that out. It's a little bit long. This piece goes in your pile. Okay. Yeah, these two pieces here, they actually will pop out. This takes just a little effort to pop them right out. You see, I just wedge up against it. Don't want to get too forceful, but I want to pop them out like that. And then they pop out, which is going to give you access to the trigger. I'm going to take that screw out. This screw is going to go right back in. It just needs to go in there partially. That just makes it easier to keep up with which screw is which because these screws are all very similar. The next screw is straight down in there, and it is for the grip, which is going to go here, and that screw is going to come out. Sometimes you got to give it a little love, get it out. That is all we're going to take apart for that. Goes in your pile. all of this, and we'll keep those together, will go in a baggie. These parts are easy for me to distinguish, so it's easy for them all to go together, which is again one of the reasons I put the screw back in for the trigger. Bag number 2. Now we're on to this part. This part, there's only one screw you have to worry about, and it's this guy right here. We have to be very careful because it's a tiny screw, and I hold this down, and then I turn the screw. Now you may be doing this with the other hand because you guys are right-handed, but take that down. This goes in the pile. Now, the other part is here. And this may be a part that we save for me, but we're gonna do it. It's not hard to do. I have a tiny little punch that goes in that hole. You have to sort of hold this and tap, tap. And like I said, I may be doing this part because it can be a little harder, but it's not bad. That's it. This and this and this all go in the pile. This is done, goes in the pile. This screw is going to go in a bag by itself because it's the only screw like it, and it'll go in a baggie. All of these will go in one baggie, just like this. That way I know all of the parts are together. The beauty is when we take these apart, as long as all 3 bags are in one bag like this, you can put them all in one box and there's no worries. Now, if we're gonna break these, really break these down, all the bigger parts are gonna go in a pile, ones that I can handle with my gloves, and all these little parts are gonna go in a separate pile. So we'll put these big parts in a bin and little parts in a bin. You can literally put all 5 of these at a time in one bin and all 5 of these at a time in one bin. I will blast them in sections. And that's it. It took me 7 minutes. So I've talked about this a little bit in some of my other videos, but I figured I'd take a moment to show how we get this finished distressed look. Pretty straightforward. There's a bunch of different ways to do distressing. I've got some distressing videos and whatnot, but essentially we got our base coat fully cured. It's important that the base coat's fully cured because otherwise you'll rub it off. And all these parts, these little tiny parts, and I have all the other parts of the AK bodies have already been done, but I have a handful of these and the pumpkin mags that I'm working on. So I'm just going to show you really quickly what I do here to get this rub distress look. So in this case, I'm using Duracoat, so it's cured hard, and I basically just mist it with black. In my case, I'm using Combat Black from Duracoat, and then I go back over it with a little acetone to rub it out and get the dark edges. Now, of course, it really depends on how far you want to go with this. It's going to depend on what your look is. It's going to depend on how much black you want down. But for Duracoat, you got to use something that will remove the paint. So if I used mineral spirits, for example, it would literally just rub this off and it would be clean, but it wouldn't actually take off the black. So yeah, this is it. So just getting it prepped down and kind of manipulate a little bit to get the look that I'm looking for. My rag gets dirty, I get a fresh one, and move on to the next one. All these little parts, because they're so little, I just want them distressed. So I literally am just moving them across. And you know, I've done now 50 of these. This is the last 5 of the set of the 50. So you can see how many small parts and how many times I've done this now for this build. So it's a lot, But if you're doing it on your own, of course, it's not this complicated. Just pull your parts. I think I'm working on, I think I'm going to work on a video where I do the whole thing with regular spray paint, because, you know, let's be honest, most of the modders out there are just using regular spray paint. Some of them will use like Tester's model paint. I don't recommend trying to brush your paints on, because you're just never going to get a smooth finished look. You can use, you know, thinner and leveler and all that, but you're just never going to get the same like original finished look. And that's something that's really important to me personally. But, you know, each their own. They do their own thing. I love the idea of modding, and I've seen some people do some really cool stuff with markers. If you join the GoatGuns Addicts page, check out Tyler Cagle. He's done a graffiti MCX, which is just absolutely amazing. But this is it. So I'm not going to bore you to sit here and watch me distress all these parts, but just want to give you a quick idea of how this look is achieved. If you are one of the purchasers of this, I hope you can appreciate the time and the work that goes into these to create a cool, unique item for you to own. In this case, there will be 50 and only 50. Once I make these for GoatGuns, they are never made again. You may see some similar version, of course, because there's only so many things you can do, but I'll never make this version again for anybody, which makes it special. Over here, you'll see the little pumpkin faces are drying, so we'll get those rolling here in a little bit. Cool, thank you. I'm gonna get back to work, and I hope that you're able to follow to the end of the video, and you'll see the finished product, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Just a quick little bit to show you how we're doing the face here. So these are all stacked. Already done a handful of them, but you can see they're over here. So we just basically take them off and center them up. That little cut that I just did is a relief cut, and it goes right in the middle. And it helps to make sure, because I have to push it way down in the middle, it spreads just enough to allow for better seating. And then you just have to carefully work your parts in. You want things to lay as naturally as they can, but because it is a circle and it's curved in 2 different directions, it presents a little challenge. So I just do a little cut right there. Allows my grimace smiley face to come around. Pull my corners. Now, when this is all said and done, I'm going to come back with tape. And yes, you have to do this to all 50 of them. Might use a skinnier tape, but basically this part is just to ensure that I don't spray. I could just do it like this too, but it's just to ensure that I don't get any black spray on the rest of it. So we'll just do that. We'll come back, we do a light misting of black, a couple of coats, and we're ready. And then tiny little parts and more tiny little parts. But we're almost ready to assemble these bad boys. They'll get shipped off, and by the time you're watching this video, they will have already been sold. Okay, let's put this thing together. So we're going to start by putting our stickers back in the pack. I've got a Gun Ink design sticker that's going to go in, and then the one I'm putting together for this video is 41 of 50, and this is going to go set aside. The first steps to doing this is making sure that everything has a very specific process, because when you're doing 50 units, you have to make sure that you have a smooth process. So the first step is to go and insert everything that doesn't need to be assembled. And you do this 50 times, you start to get a pattern. When you do this part, they have to match up, because Here you'll see the bat connects, and so I have to make sure that I put the right ones in the box. Match that up. Now that's everything that's preset in the box. Now we start assembling. Now the video that I showed disassembling was actually created for my daughter, who is 11. And she's actually the one that breaks these down for me. So she separates out all the parts for me and puts them in nice little packs, and it makes it a whole lot easier to go through this process. And again, when you're doing 50, you got to keep a nice smooth process. So the first piece is to pull the stock and the parts for the stock. And I'm just going to set this guy in here nice and easy. If you do not have a decent magnetic screwdriver, please do yourself a favor and go get one. This one that I'm using now is a great little set. Pretty sure Anthony GoatGuns, if anybody follows GoatGuns, they've met Anthony somewhere along the lines in his YouTube videos or on Facebook Addicts, but he has a very similar set to this. And that's fantastic, it's really great. Now when you put these on, you want to note that there's actually a slight difference in the depth here. So if you put them on backwards, there's a gap because they actually do go a specific direction, which makes it smoother. Just going to put those on. Now, these are the plastic furniture parts. So plastic stock, plastic grip, plastic forends. The wood ones, probably very similar situation. But now we'll set that aside and then it'll go in the case. You want to be careful with over tightening. One of the things that you'll find often when you take these apart, like the grip and whatnot, is that the tiny little hole is stripped out. And so I use this little adhesive and a toothpick. And if I have them that are stripped, I'll go in and I'll fill that hole in with this adhesive to make it tight again. And then I'll let it set. That way, when I tighten it up, it locks it back down, and I make sure that it's not going to just fall off. So now we have the receiver, and we'll move to our next little package. And the package has the receiver and the spring for the magazine. So these parts here, you'll see they get bent sometimes. So I just keep my little pliers handy, very carefully straighten them back out. It's quite challenging to get them out without bending them, so just be careful not to go too far because they will actually break. All right, so let's put the magazine together real quick. We'll get this out of the way. Slide the cap on, slide it all the way back in there. Magazine base will go back in. And that's it. And it fell a little bit crooked, so we're just going to tighten that back up straight. There you go. Now you're in there tight. That goes in the box. Next, be cautious. This little spring is rolling away. It likes to pop off. Sometimes they are on there really strong. Sometimes they fall off easily. Just going to make sure it's on. We're going to set it down in. And we're going to make sure the spring hits that little peg in there so that it has a good fit. Then your little trigger hold down, for lack of a better term. It's going to go in. I usually will set it in and put it in place and make sure that it's tight. Now we have 3 screws. One screw is a longer metal machine screw. That's the one that's going to go in here. You want to make sure it's snug and then test your trigger. Make sure it's not loose. You're good to go. The other screw is a shorter metal machine screw, and it will usually have a little bevel on it, and that's going to hold our safety catch here. Put that on. Once I get it on, I like to give it a nice little snug, just a little, to make sure that this is firm. I don't want it to be flopping around. And then lastly, the grip. Now this is a grip that I added the glue to probably about 15-20 minutes ago, so enough time for it to be solid. put it in until it's firm. And that's good. Do not over tight it or you'll be basically starting from scratch. And that's that. That's assembled. Now that goes in our case. The last piece, I missed a part. I went through all this explaining. I forgot to stick this on here. So we'll go back and we'll put these on, making sure that they're on firmly. Because you don't want to put your charging handle in and have them pop out on you. So I go in and make sure they're firm. Now I do have a cutting board so that I can do a little tapping on these guys. So I want to make sure they're in all the way. So they don't pop out on me. And they usually they snap in pretty hard, but we can always test our charging handle to make sure it's good. We are all set. Now that'll go back in the box. Last piece, counter. Okay, so we have one last screw. And you might be wondering, why do I put this one screw in a bag? And it really was for my daughter's process when she was taking everything apart. It makes it easier for her to separate everything out and know what is what. It's also really easy because you don't have to worry about mixing your screws up. But the reality is, this one's pretty straightforward. It's not easy to mix all your screws up. So when you put this on, you just want to make sure that it's facing inward, like that. And then this piece is going to go back on and it needs to catch, so it sits tight like that. And then lastly, you have your piece here. And gotta tap that back on. It's got to go on firm because you don't want that thing popping off. And we'll put our last part back in the box. Cool. So now we have everything assembled, everything's in the box. This now is going to go back in its packaging. I'm going to tear this up, that'd be just great. I was just about to say you have to be really careful because, again, I'm repackaging these to go back to GoatGuns and then go out to the people that buy them. So that goes in there. When it's all said and done, I'll go back and retape all these with little circle discs. And now we'll just quickly assemble the pumpkin. So 50 of these guys you got to do as well. I've already done a handful of the parts from taking them apart. So parts are really straightforward here. The hardest part of this whole thing is the mag spring. And the reason is getting it out is a pain in the butt. Getting it back in is not as difficult. Just want to get it all the way in there straight. And then a little effort to straighten this thing up. And get it to pop back in place. Here we go, that's back in. And sometimes these things, because rounds don't actually eject from this one yet, maybe down the road we'll see an ejecting version. Got to kind of loosen these up. It's pretty soft metal up here. So, okay, so when we wanted to do the original jack-o'-lantern, this fits the actual receiver in this way. But you can't do the jack-o'-lantern on the front, which would have been great because this is in the way and it would have looked weird. So the jack-o'-lantern sits on the back, which is cool anyway. And just for fun, I've been working on a display stand for these, but you know, I won't be able to make 50 of these, but just trying to have some fun with it. Okay, so very straightforward here. We do this guy right here. This is gonna go through. And find the hole. Put a little disc on. Screw this bad boy on. And then I just give it a little gentle twist to make it tight. Because I don't want that thing just free spinning, you know. I want it to be nice and snug. And that's that. Now we're ready to package this up and get the mag to go with the purple Halloween set. Anyway, if you got one of these, I hope you really love it. If you didn't, I hope you enjoyed the video. At least at a bare minimum, a little bit of, you know, taking apart, reassembling. You can kind of see my process. And as always, thanks for watching. And please leave comments, like, subscribe. I'm always trying to put videos together that help folks with, you know, taking things apart, creative ideas, whatever. There's some really amazing people out there. And as always, check out the Facebook group, GoatGuns Addicts, and I will typically have the link below. And I'll see you on the flip side.